Did you know that Indians consume less than 500 mg of calcium daily, far below the recommended 600 mg? While calcium is critical for people at all ages and stages in life, as we age, our need for calcium grows, especially for women over 40. But despite its importance for strong bones, muscle function, and nerve health, many of us remain unaware of our own calcium deficiency. Join us as we explore the importance of calcium, raise awareness about its impact on our bodies, and discuss ways to prioritize it in our daily lives. Let's get started on the path to be calcium strong on NDTV, presented by Shelcal 500. Joining us in studio, we have with us Dr. B.S. Murthy, Principal Director Orthopedics, Joint Replacement and Arthroscopy Surgery, Max Super Specialty Hospital, Noida. We also have Dr. Sunila Garg, Chair Program Advisory Committee, NIHFW, former Head Community Medicine, MAMC. And we have with us Ishi Khosla, Clinical Nutritionist, author, columnist, founder, Celiac Society of India. It's really a pleasure to have you all with us on this very critical subject. But I think to begin with you, I would start with you, Dr. Murthy. You know, we always think of calcium as a mineral which is needed for growing children. But if you can help us and our viewers to understand how important is it at every stage of our life, and if you can take the needs through all the stages.
See, mostly calcium is not only necessary for bone and bone health and all, it is an important element for our cardiac contractions, muscle contraction relaxations, nerve transmissions. So it is an important element because calcium metabolism is very important, and daily intake should be sufficient amount. For an adult, we say that we calculate an elemental calcium that is available. 500 milligram you take, out of that a lot of it goes out in the urine and stool. Only 100 milligram of calcium is available per day per hour. That is sufficient.
Okay.
If you take 1 gram of calcium per day, it becomes around 100 milligram is available, and that is sufficient. For children, we calculate according to the body weight because they are small infants and all. By 6 months, we don't give anything because mother's milk is sufficient amount of calcium comes from there. And madam and all gynecologists, they give calcium to the mothers, so we don't need that. But after 6 months, when they starts taking food and solid food, the milk should be an important dietary ingredient in their food. So that should be calculated according to the kilogram body weight. So 1.5 milligram per body weight they calculate it, elemental calcium. It's around 15-20 milligram is sufficient for a child of 5 kilos. So that is available in the milk every day you take. It is a fortified milk and skim milk. All these milk have a sufficient amount of calcium in that. But as the age grows up, our bone starts metabolic less activities, calcium goes out. Then you need calcium supplement in the adult age group. We call it postmenopausal. Ma'am will be talking about that. Postmenopausal hormonal changes occur. At that time, we need calcium. In senile osteoporosis above 60 years, we need sufficient amount of calcium, which should be estimated from the blood and also from the bone. We call it a bone mineral density, and then only you give calcium. We don't give calcium like that because it sometimes hardens your vessels and may cause cardiac issues.
Okay.
So don't take too much of calcium, not thinking that let's not pass on this message to the people out here that every adult above 60 needs calcium. No.
Okay.
It should be estimated by what we call a DEXA scan above 60, which we recommend after every 2-3 years. For postmenopausal women, every year or 9 months you must get it done and supplement it up with diets. But calcium should be estimated. It should not be excessive. It should not be too low.
I think that's a very valid point, not excessive, and we should calculate how much is needed. Dr. Garg, before we move on further, I want to ask you, what are the signs and symptoms that a lady, specifically I want to ask you for women over 40, because once they're perimenopause, like Dr. Murthy said, also menopause, what are the signs and symptoms a woman should be looking at to know if she's actually calcium deficient?
Dr. Ambika, it's a very, very valid question. But first I would like to say that now we don't talk after 40. It's even before that, because now we are victims of lifestyle diseases. So if you think of a diabetic woman, now we have got a lot of, youngsters also who are suffering from chronic diseases like diabetes, where, there is, and in our own studies we found that almost 90% of the women are vitamin D deficient also. So that means they are also calcium deficient. So I'll say that definitely, when we talk of, before the childbearing, to the childbearing and after 40.
Okay.
all throughout. It's a kind of a lifespan, a life cycle approach, particularly when we talk of, you know, in overall perspective and when we talk specifically in context of gender. So we need to be very cautious of the fact that particularly calcium part and vitamin D part, these are very, very important.
Yes.
Because the mother, you know, who is osteoporotic herself, you know, primarily in the early ages, is, and she's also vulnerable in terms of childbearing and child rearing also. So that part becomes very important, and we need to be very cautious about, you know, the diets which have to be given
Yes.
to her, and we need to talk about holistic diet or balanced diet. That part is and balanced diet means all colors when we are talking of. So
Absolutely.
all colors should be
So
there.
signs and symptoms specifically.
Yeah. So
if
when
I-
we talk of signs and symptoms, so primarily the basic early sign which most of the women, you know, they kind of tend to ignore is the, you know, fatigue. You know, they are stressed out early, and also, you know, it in later stages, you know, it, as doctor mentioned, that it also helps in, you know, basically affects the nerve conduction. It will help, you know, it will also kind of affect your blood clotting. It will also help in muscular, it will also, you know, kind of affect your muscular contraction. So all these things, and, you know, easy fractures.
Yeah.
And when you especially mentioned 40 years and above, you know, falls are quite very common. Now, you know, basically that part we have to be very particular about ergonomics also. And in gender perspective, when the woman is involved with too many activities, both at home
Yes.
and, you know, at the office front and all, so ergonomics becomes very, very important, because with osteoporosis, the fractures are also very, very common. So
Dr. Ishi, yeah, that's where I think it's important to get you in here to know what is important for a woman, or let's just keep it specifically for women at over 40, or in general also, like, of course, we know about milk, like doctor said, but what are those things that we should include in our diet to ensure that we are not calcium deficient?
You know what, I would like to just take this in a different perspective before I answer your question specifically, because we are talking about a nutrient deficiency. It's a micronutrient or macronutrient
Yes.
deficiency. And but we don't seem to be having single nutrient deficiencies today. We seem to be having multiple nutrient deficiencies. And if we pick out only one and start hyper focusing on that, it can go horribly wrong, and which has probably happened to the population, because we have focused on calcium without focusing on magnesium. Magnesium is simply important because otherwise we will have problems. So whichever company, whichever supplement manufacturer is working towards calcium supplementation must work on the right ratio also of calcium to magnesium.
Yeah.
Else it can be a problem, and the bones can become, if you just take magnesium without calcium, can also be a problem. It can demineralize the bones, and the
So I
other
think
way
what you
around.
said, the right amount.
The ratio
yeah,
is
the
very
ratio.
important. And so before 40 or after 40, this is
A common rule, which is,
across.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And secondly, no matter how much I supplement or focus on my nutrients, as long as if my gut is not healthy, if my food is good but my gut is not healthy, I'm not going to be absorbing it. So let's understand why in the wake of plenty, we have dairy products abundantly drunk and eaten in India. We have availability and access to calcium-rich foods, and yet we are deficient, and why a lot of us are suffering from bone loss. So therefore, I would say that we need to address multiple nutrient issues when you're talking about bone health. And if you're talking about calcium, then ensure that you're also absorbing the calcium and magnesium and all the other nutrients adequately.
I think that's really well put, because very critical points that have come out. Dr. Murthy, I want to ask you here, I mean, now that we've understood the importance, the right way to deal with it, if you can explain to us the concept of peak bone mass. If you can tell us what peak bone mass is, how does one aim to get there? What does it really mean in simple terms?
See, bone metabolism bone is a very vital and very active ingredient of our body. Calcium gets deposited, then it used, and calcium gets washed out. So there is an inflow and outflow of calcium. So basically at say around 24-27 years, when the metabolism of bone, that is in the bone taking up more calcium than bone going out of the calcium going out of the bone, that is where the peak of the bone mass reaches.
Okay.
The bone becomes the strongest at 20. After 30 years, our reversal occurs. More bone calcium loss is there, and less deposition is there. That's why 40 is a very important age group where we have reached our peak, and after that the bone starts becoming weaker.
Weaker, okay.
And you should understand the bone is not made of only calcium, it is made of proteins, as ma'am told, magnesium, all other elements. Protein is the basis on which the calcium cells and everything lies in there, protein matrix.
Okay.
So protein is one thing we are forgetting to mention in all our these things. A protein is very important for adult. When bone mass as a whole, like calcium and proteins and other ingredients are lost, it is called osteoporosis. In children, it is only loss of calcium, it is osteomalacia. The bone becomes soft. Then there is a bowing of the legs, maybe outgoing of the legs. So this happens because we force our children to walk before 9 months, thinking that it is a very good.
But
my
it's
child
putting
is
pressure
walking,
on the,
but actually his bones are not strong enough to take the weight. It is 11 months to 12 that we say that child should be walking around.
Sure.
It's not 7 months or 8 months. But since we are very active people, we say that child should walk.
Yeah.
Then it becomes a very deformity which we call it rickets.
Yeah, rickets.
That is osteomalacia. And the bone mass peak is reached at the 30. After that, it starts coming down.
Okay. So now that we've understood, also this, the whole thing about bone mass, and usually we think, Dr. Garg, of calcium as, more for bone health. But if you can tell us a link between when it comes to calcium and the health of a woman from the gynecological aspect.
I think, supplementation of calcium, as has been already discussed, in right quantity and right amount, that is very, very important. It's not that we give excess of calcium, that is important. So 1 gram of calcium a day, that is important part. And we are also supplementing it during pregnancy as well. So that part becomes very important. But another thing which has not been touched is also we need to also remember that 56% of our women are also anemic.
Yes.
Right. So, quite a number of times, if she is fatigued, so it's not only because of calcium, it's because of together deficiency. They are anemic as well as calcium deficient also. So that's where we need to think of that in right quantity, but diet plays a very important role. Wherever they can afford, when we talk of milk products like curd or cheese and all, they should be taking that. And along with that, when green leafy vegetables, that means whichever are vegetables are there in whichever part of the country, they are freely available, we should be promoting that, whether we talk of broccoli or kale.
So it will help tackle anemia as well as, of course,
definitely,
other deficiencies.
that will be there.
Ishi, I want to ask.
I also add
yes, sure.
smoking is a very big
cause as well.
Anti-calcium. Yes, alcohol and smoking, whether it's a man or a woman, will deplete your calcium.
So that is something one needs to again abstain from. Do you think there's a gap or when it comes to awareness? But specifically, I want to ask you about calcium and vitamin D. They go hand in hand. And the awareness on this, and also the the uptake for the need of supplementation. Do you actually have people saying, yes, we know we need supplementation? So awareness on that?
Good question here, very good question, because certain things we can document in blood work.
Yeah.
Like vitamin D is a clear indication, we have levels and we can correlate the deficiencies with it. However, when it comes to magnesium and calcium, they can be false, because cellular levels could be different from blood levels. So you'll never get to know a deficiency unless it's gross, which sometimes doesn't happen. Yeah. So that is a very big one. So people say, oh, my calcium supplement, I don't need it because my calcium is okay, my blood levels are okay, or my magnesium levels are okay in my blood test. So we don't get those early signs, and we have to, but vitamin D is a red flag. And I think if you have a low vitamin D, it's clear that you are going to be compromised in your other nutrients as well. And magnesium deficiency is really rampant. It's really, while calcium is stored in our skeletal system and our teeth, magnesium is, is there in our cells, and it keeps getting sort of out of our cells into the bloodstream.
Yeah.
Yes. And we lose it, of course, if it's in excess through body fluid. But the point I'm making simply is that we can document up to a point, and DEXA scans are not again public health initiatives. They can be done only on a certain level.
And after a certain age, like usually we hear.
And after a certain age and a frequency, etc. So it's limited.
Well, on that note, we're going to be taking a really short break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about not just about, I think, what should be done, but I think more about lifestyle and how we can really improve the deficiency of calcium in our bodies. Welcome back. You're watching Be Calcium Strong on NDTV. Dr. Garg, I want to ask you, when we talk about specifically hormonal changes for women, one is, of course, during their periods, during menopause, and also perimenopause, because that's something we're talking. So while aging, how do you recommend to manage bone health?
I think it is while one is aging, one has to be very particular about the signs and symptoms. That is important, and every time one has to be cautious that about we need to create the awareness. First of all, about the calcium and vitamin D as a whole, and the importance, when we look at bone health part of it, and we need to focus on certain symptoms, like I said, that easy fatigability, or in advanced stages we talk about the muscle part and the nerve conduction part and all that. But most important part is if the person is really stressed and all that, we need to focus on that part. But important is the lifestyle management part. That part I would like to say. But somewhere, the message gets cut when we don't focus on, the outdoor activities and the importance of sunshine and all that. I think 2 weeks back, I was in Kolkata where the issue came up of menstrual leave and all that. Something which is to be, if it is a very, very severe case of, having menstrual
Heavy
problems
bleeding,
and all, then one can definitely be, taking care of specific case. But today we are talking of woman empowerment. We are talking about a healthy woman. We are talking of a well woman. So that is where we need to focus on, not only calcium, magnesium or iron, but we need to talk of diet as a whole. That is important, and which should be reaching the last mile. That is important. So awareness among the woman, who is a tribal woman, urban woman, rural woman, about the calcium part is also very important, and availability of calcium from the natural food, and the changes which happen during different periods of life.
So managing bone health for you, according to you, is diet is important, making sure it reaches everybody, along with lifestyle.
And along with lifestyle, and from the systems part, like when we talk of pregnancy and
like specifically pregnancy
supplements, they become important.
So you've summed it up really well. And Dr. Murthy, if I can ask you here, simple question, how can one prevent osteoporosis, or what besides diet? We've spoken about diet, we've spoken about lifestyle. What would you like to recommend?
I get a lot of osteoporosis cases in my body. Around 30% of my practice is patient osteoporotic, and because I operate on geriatric patients, most of them are osteoporotic. But when I go for giving lectures in the societies and all those things, I say that it is every level there is a necessity of different way of managing to prevent osteoporosis. So prevention is very important.
Okay.
In children, diet is very important. Outdoor activities are important. In adult, it is the exercises. Muscles are attached to the bone through a substance called periosteum. If you consider the green stick, the outer layer of the green stick is a periosteum in bone.
Okay.
And muscles are attached. If the muscle, that is where the bone gets laid. So doing muscular exercises till adult 18 years, no weights and all, you can do aerobic exercises, and ma'am will be talking about that. So that exercise is very important.
Okay.
And after 18, you can do weight training, and ladies and everybody should be doing a weight training. Nowadays, it is proved that it is good for diabetic also to do lightweight trainings. And it increases the muscle mass, it increases the blood supply to the bone, and through the blood, calcium goes to the bone. Other nutrients like magnesium and proteins, everything goes to the bone. Lifestyle changing is that we have a lot of antioxidants that we take in our food, but oxidants are very important part which causes our bone damage. Like smoking, drinking, alcohol, like ma'am told, calcium deficiency has been proved that it is excessive intake of calcium causes loss of bone calcium.
So you've summed it up really well. Thank you, Dr. Garg. Thank you, Dr. Murthy. Now, Ishi, so as a closing remark, Ishi, anything you would like to add to what Dr. Murthy and Dr. Garg said?
We spoke about building a good bone bank in the formative years, and some things in even childhood and adulthood we find which can give us an indication of poor calcium status or the other nutrients which are important for bone health are poor oral health, cavities. And women and men, who even children, have poor nails. Either they're brittle or they're unhealthy looking. So those are also very easy public health messages for people to understand that they need to
look out for. So I think oral health and what you said, nails, important. Nails. So keep a lookout for those symptoms as well. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure to have you with us. So let's be mindful of our body's needs and understand the symptoms of calcium deficiency. By knowing the signs and symptoms, we can take proactive steps to build our health through regular workouts, a balanced diet, and the right supplements. Be calcium strong from the inside out. Thank you so much for watching.